Alright, this video I'll be talking about the Middle East, and basically you have here on top to the left you have Turkey, then below it Syria, Lebanon, Israel, Jordan, Iraq, Saudi Arabia, Yemen, Oman, United Arab Emirates, Kuwait. So as you know, you had this Saddam Hussein in 1991, George Bush's speech. It's about more than one small country. It's about a big idea, New World Order. So you have Baghdad right here, you have Mosul, you have the different parts of Afghanistan. Now, we go on to Syria. As you know, Syria and Iraq are interconnected. It's part of where Babylon used to be, the Babylonian Empire. And you have Damascus in Syria, you have Assad and the rebellions going on there, you have Lebanon and Beirut, you have the Hezbollah and how they're connected to Lebanon as well as Iran. In Iran, of course, you have important cities like Tehran, and which is up here, and you have Tabriz, you have Rashid, you have all the rest of the important cities in Iran, which is where the Shiites have a stronghold, Ahmadinejad, Ayatollah Khomeini as well. So, the Iranian Scythians were there at about 2000 BCE. So while Egypt has its dynasties, there's your Iranian. They're over there. Put them in their place. They're over there. Okay, Egypt and Sargon. Sargon's like what, 2600 BCE? So in Egypt, you have the people here already. The Africans, the Nubians, Egypt, Sudan, Eritrea, Ethiopia. Okay, you have the Silk Road, and we'll get into that in a minute, and how that ties into Afghanistan and the bigger picture. Now, go on to talk about, of course, Alexander the Great. He went through all these places and he left his marks on these places. Those Alexandria near the Murghab River as well. And you had different dynasties and different kingdoms, like the Parthian kingdom, for example, in 224 AD, and the Sassanids. Okay, they were the rulers of Iran. Then you had the Huns, and you had other groups and tribes, tribal people, right? Now, of course, there was the October Revolution in 1917 in Russia. So, if you understand how this all ties in with the Russians and the Soviets and the British and the Arab tribes and how their history evolves together and how they start working together. Well, some factions of them start working together, and how secret societies start evolving in that area quite rapidly. So, when you go back to the earliest evidence in Afghanistan, it goes back to 50,000 BCE. So as you have the Nubians, they're traveling that way, they migrate over there, and then later on everyone else kind of moves in. Now, it's important to note that you have the local dynasties like the Kushans, the Saffarids, the Ghaznavids, you have the Timurids, you have the Mughals, and you have the Greco-Bactrians. Obviously, it has to do with Greece. Now, if we go on to the history of Kazakhstan, we're talking about the steep belts. We're talking about the Karato Mountains, the Caspian and Balkhash areas. Now, this is where the Neanderthals came from, these mountains, and in central Kazakhstan. And we're talking about the different revolutions that went through there, the different developments you had there. You had copper and metal, of course, were being developed there and refined. And if you go through the history of Afghanistan, you find that Afghanistan, the Taliban came in the 90s, 95. They took over from another Muslim ruler, and they come in. So, if you understand how when the Cold War was going on, and when the Taliban was fighting the Russians, and how this all ties into the Russians forming satellite states, and how trying to maintain their satellite states, in America trying to get a foothold in the region. Okay, you understand how Turkey has its problems with Greece, and they had their skirmishes because of the proximity. And as well as you had Cyprus and the islands like Malta and Crete, and these islands where the people who were bringing their gospels, they brought them this way. And Peter went to Turkey, for example. And if you understand the history and how it ties in together, you have to understand we're going back 50,000 years, okay? The people who became your modern day Iranians had already left Egypt long before the pyramids were being developed and made. So to give them credit doesn't make any sense. For example, the first migrations out to India, 70,000 BCE. You had the migrations to Europe and to Alaska that came later, etc., in Australia. And understand how Neanderthals fit into the picture of Caucasians and why they think they're better, and the racist Caucasians think they're better. And we go on to how we got to where we got today, from the Sassanids and the Huns and Alexander the Great, and how did we get to where we are today? Well, it was a series of empires and secret societies moves on the chessboard. That's how the Persian Gulf and the Mediterranean Sea and the Red Sea and the Gulf of Aden, it's how they all tie into the area. You need your source of water. It also supplies fish. You need your water sources to irrigate, and you need your inundation you need to take advantage of the inundation period of the Nile. You need to use it to water the crops as well as invade and defend from being invaded. So when the Library of Alexandria was located in too close of proximity to the Mediterranean Sea, is part of why it got burned down. Now understand that Turkmenistan and Afghanistan, which are actually not on this map, they're on the top right over here, they're not really in the news. Well, excuse me, Turkmenistan is not really in the news as much as Afghanistan, and Iran wasn't that much in the news when we were invading Iraq. It's all about satellite nations and the countries who are at war with each other over who controls those satellite nations. Because Israel has a foot in Lebanon too, but it's not as consolidated as Hezbollah. But at the same time, the Zionists run the whole show in a way. So let's see what time we're at here. Okay, we'll explore a little bit more. Okay, if you look at where Medina is on the map, okay, and where Muhammad, when he was breaking the idols there, and decided that Mecca was the holy ground, and you have their sacred stone and your sacred cube, etc. And if you notice where it is, and you notice where the Jews went, it's in the same area as where Moses put his monuments.